On today's episode of Time About the Movies, not only do we have what I think is probably the best weekend of the year for movies, it's probably one of the best weekends we've ever covered on the show because we've got 5 movies here, 5 terrific films, including Disney's reboot of The Muppets. We have one of the greatest Christmas movies of recent memory, Arthur Christmas. Martin Scorsese jumps into the family film game with Hugo. We have Michelle Williams as Marilyn Monroe in My Week with Marilyn. And we have this year's Best Picture winner at the Oscars, The Artist. So I'm really looking forward to this week. After so many bad weeks we've had in 2011, it's worth it to get to a week like this. November 25th, 2011, Thanksgiving weekend 2011, today on Time About the Movies.
The Muppets. Se mueve, se mueve.
You know it's going to be a great weekend when you're starting off with the Muppets. I mean, who doesn't love these guys? But anyway, welcome to Time About the Movies. Like I said in the opening, this is going to be easily one of the best weekends we've ever covered on this show. 5 films to take a look at for Thanksgiving weekend 2011. All of them are really good movies. Starting off with our first movie here, that is, of course, Disney's The Muppets, which is the big return to the Muppets to the big screen. Their first film since Muppets from Space 12 years ago on the big screen. They've been on TV before with movies and TV specials, but to have them returning into a big screen adventure, you got a film produced by Nick Stoller from Forgetting Sarah Marshall, Jason Segel, one of the stars of that movie, who did the puppet play in that movie, if you will. I couldn't remember what I was trying to say here. The puppet show, if you will, from Forgetting Sarah Marshall. He's involved in this. It's written by James Bob. It's directed by James Bobbin and written with songs written by him and Brett McKenzie from Flight of the Conchords. I mean, everything is coming together, and unlike some other movies we've taken a look at where you think everything's going to come together and then it doesn't, everything comes together here, and it makes for an incredible film experience. If you never saw the Muppets on the big screen, this would have been your perfect opportunity to see them on the big screen for the first time. So in the movie, you have the new Muppet, Walter, played by Peter Linz, who's the world's biggest Muppet fan, and his brother Gary, played by Jason Segel, along with his friend Mary, played by Amy Adams. They have to raise $10 million to save the Muppet Theater from Tex Richmond, an evil businessman played by Chris Cooper, who plans to demolish the Muppet Theater to drill for oil. And I'll admit, when I first saw it, I really liked the movie. I didn't love it like everybody else did. I think it got like a 98% on Rotten Tomatoes back in the day, back when you could actually depend on Rotten Tomatoes. And I came out of it just coming out like, yeah, this is a really good movie. It's not it's not the best Muppet movie ever, but it works for what it was trying to do. And I think mostly it was because the Muppets hadn't really been gone for that long, like the movie's trying to tell you. Yeah, it had been 12 years since the last theatrical Muppet movie and 19 since the last really good one, but it had only been about 3 years since the last time the Muppets were in any big TV specials. I mean, they had a holiday special that was on NBC, Letters to Santa. But so for the movie to go as far as to say that it's been way too long since the Muppets have been gone for too long, kind of an understatement overall. They have been around, but you just had to find them to find the newer stuff in general. Not to mention the many commercials they were involved in with various products, but that doesn't change my thoughts on the movie whatsoever, because the movie itself is about as good as you can ask for, and then some. You can tell that Jason Segel has a passion for this. He's the main mastermind behind this project. He's having a ton of fun with this movie, and it definitely shows on the screen. When he's on screen, you can just tell how happy he is to be a part of this. It's like the equivalent of watching Space Jam and watching Michael Jordan. You know, he knows he's going in there having a good time doing this. You don't see a guy that's just clearly doing this for a paycheck. You see a guy that's clearly in love with what he's doing. Here you see that with Segel. He's happy to be involved in this, and everything he was hoping for with this movie seems to work out the way it was represented. Of all the people here, I was actually kind of surprised Amy Adams was kind of misused here. She doesn't really do anything in particular to move the film along, but at the same time, she's fine in here. I don't know. I think for an actress who's just getting started, I would think an actress like Jennifer Lawrence or Elizabeth Banks probably would have been a better role for this at that time. But, you know, you got somebody who's been in many movies before this and have been nominated for several Oscars before this, and she's just not really given a whole lot here to do, per se. I mean, I feel like they brought her in here because, hey, we had goodwill with her with, you know, Enchanted a couple years ago. It was a big hit during the holiday season, so we could do the same thing here with this, But the highlight of the film definitely is the Muppets. They are just as good as and fun to watch in here. They act like the Muppets we know and love. There's great moments in here. There's moments that made me laugh out loud. I mean, the "Am I a Man or Am I a Muppet" sequence when Jim Parsons, there's a part where Walter and Jason Segel's character, what was his name again? Gary. Like they're singing about, "Am I a man or am I a Muppet?" which got an Oscar for Best Original Song, well deserved too. And I think it was actually the first Muppet. I think it was actually the first Muppet movie to ever get an Oscar for that. But there's a part where Jason Segel's singing like, "Am I a man or am I a Muppet?" and he's looking at a mirror and it's a Muppet version of himself. But then when it goes to Walter as the Muppet, the human version is Jim Parsons from The Big Bang Theory. And when I saw that for the first time, I laughed so hard when that happened. Like, you're expecting somebody to be there, probably a big name, but you're not expecting to see Sheldon Cooper from The Big Bang Theory there. But the other time that made me laugh out loud was when the 80s robot kept showing up on the big screen. Every time he showed up, like, he made me laugh out loud. He was absolutely hilarious every time he was on screen. And the cameos overall, I think, work. It comes to what you expect from the Muppet movies. I know a lot of people thought the cameos were the film's biggest problems, but then again, like it's really not that big of a deal, especially considering that it is a Muppet movie and you expect to see a ton of cameos in these movies. The songs overall are great. The new songs are nicely done. You got classics. "We Built This City." The best song in this is the version of Rainbow Connection, a new version of the Rainbow Connection, which the original one from the Muppet movie is just so well done and sets you up for the movie that you're about to see. But then when it comes into the end here, and it's just such a good representation of everything that the Muppets had gone through, and thinking that this was probably the end of the road for them with this telethon that they're involved in, and they can't get the money and all that, like, it really is. I'm not gonna lie, I did get a little choked up when I heard it the first time. I thought it was so well done. I thought it was well put together. Just a really, really great rendition of that song. I mean, that's right up there with the Bridge of Light sequence from Happy Feet 2 as one of those great moments and that just really sticks with you no matter what. My biggest problem with the movie comes from two specific areas. One was kind of a nitpicky thing with like the sneaky marketing for Cars 2, which Disney kind of used this to promote Cars 2 of all movies, not once, not twice, but 3 times in the movie. Like, if you want to throw in some marketing Disney, you could have thrown some Mickey Mouse in there, but why Cars 2? Like, why that movie? Why are you so keen on selling that movie to people? The other problem with the movie I had is that some of the self-referential humor was not particularly strong. Like, I mean, I think a show like Community, which was on at that time, had done the better job of any movie or TV show when it comes to making self-referential jokes at that point. The meta jokes on the Community work very well, but here, not exactly. And to me, it has an ending that I still really don't like after all these years. Like, it ends on this great note where you think, the Muppets don't inherit the money, they're going to have to get rid of the studio, and they're all going to be like, hey, as long as we're all together, it doesn't matter where we're at. Like it, and of course, it ends on this really nice note, and then they decide to kind of throw in the cheap happy ending because the Tex Richmond subplot ends on such a bizarre stupor. Like it ends and they rush it out of there during the end credits. It feels so rushed and unnecessary what they do here, and it just really felt like, oh, come on, man. Like really? That's what you're going to end this on? The good news is that the next movie completely obliterates that point right there and just moves it along from where it was before, from where the end credit ends it there. Like that, when the end graphic comes up, that's when the movie should have ended. Not throw in this completely random ending to your subplot that makes no sense whatsoever. But again, most of these are just kind of nitpicky things to me, but the movie overall is just great. It's a really fun movie. The cast is great for the most part. They're having a good time making the film. The Muppets are great. It's a movie that is very much high up there with the Muppet movies that we've had before. Even with its problems with the plot, it delivers what you asked for and then some. It's a terrific film. I can't recommend it enough. The Muppets, just great, great stuff. And speaking of more great stuff for families, let's move on to our next movie, which is Arthur Christmas.
Arthur Christmas, rated G.
Once again, I kind of touched on this a lot more in detail in Christmas in July, so if you want to go check that video out, I'll leave a link to it in the corner. But I'll briefly sum it up for you. This revolves around Arthur Christmas, voiced by James McAvoy, one of the sons of Santa Claus, voiced by Jim Broadbent. The other is Steve, voiced by Hugh Laurie, who makes sure everything runs smoothly on Christmas Eve. But when a child's present is accidentally left over on Christmas Eve, there's only a few hours before sunrise, so Arthur and Grand Santa, voiced by Bill Nighy, travel to bring the present to the child before the sun rises on Christmas Day. And I just really enjoy the hell out of this movie. For Aardman Animation, this was something that they really needed after the last movie they had put out, Flushed Away, was not the big hit that they were hoping for. But this is a nice return to form for them. And this did a better job of doing a CG animated film than Flushed Away did. And it just works because it's unlike a lot of family films that were coming out at that time. No fart jokes, no toilet humor, no pop culture references. It's a timeless Christmas movie. And the marketing, I think, was the biggest flaw of the film, because kind of like with another movie we talked about recently, Happy Feet 2 and also The Big Year, the marketing really ruined the excitement of the film for a lot of people. And this is one they had to really search out for in Christmases to come. It's definitely worth it because everything about it just works. The voice work is top-notch. James McAvoy is great as Arthur. Bill Nighy's great as Grand Santa. Hugh Laurie and Jim Broadbent are great. You know, there's a lot of moments in here that just work. There's no villain in here. It would have been so easy to make Steve the villain of the film, but they don't do that. He's just somebody who's, you know, he wants to be Santa Claus, but he has to realize over the course of the movie that, you know, you can't always get what you want, but the whole movie's purpose is about the family dynamic, and it's great how at the end of the movie, the thing you're supposed to take away from it is that it's not about the commercialism of Christmas. It's focusing on family, and the way it's done is so well put together. The ending, when they finally get the present to the kid, it's just such a great moment. It just ends on the perfect note. And everything that happens is warranted. Everybody that gets into the situation that they're in, is right where you think they need to be. It's just something that just works on every single level. Again, I've gone into this in greater detail in the Christmas in July video, which, like I said, take a look at that over there. But it's definitely one you want to check out. It's definitely one this Christmas. Seek out Arthur Christmas, because really it is one of the best Christmas movies of recent memory. One of my favorite Christmas movies of all time. Just top-notch stuff. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to yet another really good family film out for the holiday season. It's Martin Scorsese taking his crack at it with Hugo.
Hugo, a Martin Scorsese picture, rated PG.
Like I said, man, this is just a fantastic weekend to bring the family out to the movie theaters. Hugo is a fantasy adventure that takes place in a Paris railway station in the early 1930s. You have Hugo Cabaret, played by Asa Butterfield in his first feature film role, who's a young boy whose mother has died and who lives with his father, played by Jude Law, who's a master clockmaker. He takes him to see films and loves the films of Georges Méliès, who also gave us The Trip to the Moon. Hugo's family dies in a museum fire, and Hugo's taken away by his uncle, an alcoholic water maker who is responsible for maintaining the clocks in the railway station. His uncle teaches him to take care of the clocks and disappears. Hugo lives between the walls of the train station, maintaining the clocks, stealing foods, and working on his father's most ambitious project, a broken automaton, a mechanical man who's supposed to write with a pen, which Hugo's father has found and hoped to repair. The automaton is missing one part, though, a heart-shaped key. Convinced that the automaton contains a message from his father, Hugo goes to desperate lengths to fix the machine. He gains the assistance of Isabelle, played by Chloe Moretz, and a girl who's a girl close to his age, and the Godfather, played by Ben Kingsley, who's a toy shop owner. He introduces Isabella to the movies, which her Godfather has never let her see. Isabelle turns out to have the key to the automaton, which unlocks it to provide a drawing of a film scene Hugo remembers his father telling him about. They discover that the film was created by Méliès as Isabelle's godfather, an early but now neglected and disillusioned cinema legend, and that the automaton was a beloved creation of his form from his days as a magician. I mean, I'll be honest with you. The first 30 minutes really didn't get to me at first. It was just kind of like, okay, this is interesting and all, but can we get to the good stuff here? And then right after the first 30 minutes, I'm seeing that with a lot of movies recently. Elemental kind of was like that a couple years ago. This summer we just had Elio. All of them kind of started off really slow, but once you get to the heart of the storyline and it picks up speed, that's when the movie gets really good. And Hugo definitely does that. This is definitely one of the best movies of the year, of 2011. The character of Hugo is very interesting, played by Asa Butterfield. He kind of looks like a younger Cillian Murphy as a kid. But the rest of the cast overall is great. Some of the best acting in years for a lot of people. Ben Kingsley, in particular, man. When you come off of stuff like The Love Guru and Prince of Persia and The Sound of Thunder and Thunderbirds, you take an opportunity like this and you show everybody why you won the Oscar for Gandhi many decades ago. And here, it's one of his best roles. Maybe the best role he's done since Gandhi, honestly. Chloe Moretz is really good here. I like Sacha Baron Cohen, very funny as the station inspector who's like trying to get to Hugo and take him away from the station. And what I really like about the movie is that the story changes from one end to the other. You think the movie's going to revolve around Hugo trying to find out the secret behind what his father left behind, but then it kind of takes this whole turn. It doesn't just change it out of nowhere. It takes a while to really understand what's going on, and they reveal it, and they do it smartly, and not just throw it in there with you at the last minute. The visuals in here are fantastic to look at. The shots look incredible. In 3D, this looked amazing to watch. Robert Richardson, the cinematographer for this, deserved an Oscar nomination for this. I don't know if he got one or not, but well done, man. This is some of the best cinematography I've seen in a long, long time, with the 3D working incredibly well as well. My only real flaw with the movie is they do one of the most hated cliches of mine, the dream sequence. Not only once, but twice within 5 minutes. And I'm sorry, I cannot stand that sequence. It is nothing but filler. It adds nothing to the equation. It doesn't elevate the story anymore. It's just filler for some reason to wake the audience up, the idiots that are too stupid to follow along with the plot, because, I'm sorry, that's a dumb, dumb cliche, and I'm hoping that, I'm glad to see we're getting away from that and not doing it unless we really need to move the story along. And yeah, it really does waste your time here, but that's only a 5-minute segment that takes a little bit of a bad chunk of a really good movie all across the board. I mean, this is definitely one of the year's best movies. I mean, this is fantastic, visually impressive, acting great, the best overall feel of any movie I saw this year. And yeah, Midnight in Paris was my favorite movie of the year. This one is definitely very much high up there, and this is definitely something that is one of the highlights of the year. And like I said, 2011 was off to a rocky start the first half of the year, but thank God that the second half of the year has just come out swinging, and we're just getting one great movie after another. This is just a masterpiece. What more can I say, man? Hugo is fucking fantastic. So let's go ahead and move on to our next movie, and that is My Week with Marilyn.
Sweet despair.
My Week with Marilyn.
So this is, of course, the story of Michelle Williams playing Marilyn Monroe on the making of her 1957 movie The Prince and the Showgirl with Laurence Olivier, played by Kenneth Branagh. The film concerns the week during the shooting of which Monroe was escorted around London by a guy named Clark, played by Eddie Redmayne in one of his early film roles, after her husband, Arthur Miller, played by Dougray Scott, has returned to the United States. You also see a cast that includes Julia Ormond, Emma Watson, Judi Dench, and terrific movie, man. Directed by Simon Curtis. Simon Curtis, of course, was the man that gave us, I thought it was the same guy that did Four Weddings and a Funeral, but no, he did David Copperfield. He's also directed the most recent Downton Abbey movies. He did Woman in Gold, Goodbye Christopher Robin, and The Art of Racing in the Rain. And overall, a terrific movie, and it works mostly because of Michelle Williams as Marilyn Monroe. She really does knock it out of the park, and you can see why she was nominated for Best Actress at the Oscars. And she works it very well here. She has a lot of good chemistry between her and Branagh, her and Dougray Scott, and also her and Eddie Redmayne. Like, who wouldn't have wanted to spend a week with Marilyn Monroe? I mean, honestly, who wouldn't have wanted to do that back in the day? Especially if somebody like Michelle Williams is playing her in this case. But, I mean, just a terrific performance for her. She's having a really good year this year because she was great in that FX show Dying for Sex, which she plays like, she was playing a woman who had like cancer, and like she decided, hey, I'm gonna go ahead and start having sex more. She was diagnosed with terminal cancer, and she left her husband in search for an orgasm. That's what happened. I mean, that was basically right beforehand, but I just wanted to be specific. I just wanted to be clear on that, But that's not what we're talking about. We're talking about this movie, and it is a well-made film. It's a movie that, yeah, it is trying to beg for Oscars, but it's doing it in a way where it's actually working to the film's favor. It's a well-done film, boasted by a strong leading performance by Michelle Williams. Just proof that, she is one of our great actresses that deserves some Oscar recognition. Hopefully that day will come where someone will give it to her, and not just for a body of work performance, but Great movie. Great movie overall. Not much more to say about that one. So with that said, let's go ahead and move on to the actual Best Picture winner this year, which unlike last year's The King's Speech, was well deserved, and that is The Artist.
The Artist, rated PG-13.
So yeah, this was a movie that swept the Oscars, won 5 of them, including Best Picture, Best Director for Michael Hazanavicius. I think I'm pronouncing that name correctly. Jean Dujardin won Best Actor. Denise Bejo was also nominated for Best Supporting Actress. And it's a movie that is a love letter to movies, and the Oscars love a love letter to movies, and this was one of those ones where it just works on so many levels. It takes place in Hollywood between 1927 and 1932 and focuses on the relationship between a rising young actress played by Bejo and an older silent film star as silent cinema falls out of fashion and is replaced by the talkies. And you see an interesting character study between these two. One person who's made a living of starring in these silent pictures, and somebody who's on the rise, who's getting ready to take over this new form of filmmaking, and they find a connection and a chemistry that works together so well. This movie did everything right that The King's Speech did wrong. It was an Oscar bait movie, but it wasn't an Oscar bait movie that was literally begging for Oscars, even if it was not delivering anything of noteworthiness to it. Here, it just works. The film looks like something that's straight out of the silent film era. It's so well done on how it's handled, and John Dujardin and Denise Bejo are very, very good together. They have a strong cast in front of them to make it work. A strong supporting cast, James Cromwell, Penelope Ann Miller, Malcolm McDowell, Missy Pyle, John Goodman, Ken Davitan. Just terrific cast overall in this. And it is a beautiful looking film to look at. Even though it is a silent film, like I said, it feels like you're back in the 20s when this is taking shape. And it just works so well. It's a love letter to the movies. It's beautifully put together. It's well done. It's an amazing film. It's a great film. I'm so happy it won Best Picture. Granted, I would have loved it if Hugo or Midnight in Paris had won Best Picture that year. But if a good movie is going to beat them out, I really don't have a problem with it whatsoever. And The Artist is a very, very good movie. It's one of the Best Picture winners that sadly nobody ever talks about as much anymore. These people that made this and won the Oscars have not really done a whole lot in terms of, anything of noteworthiness since then. I think John Dujardin has only been in a couple movies. He was in Wolf of Wall Street, but other than that, though, he hasn't been in much since, if I'm not mistaken. I have to double check and see, but then again, it's not like these people are out of work. They're still doing stuff, but nothing as high profile as this movie was. But like I said, terrific film. Can't recommend this one enough. The Artist, seek it out, man. It's a wonderful, wonderful film. And thus, with all that said, we wrap up another edition of Time About the Movies. And how do you wrap up one of the best weeks of the year, one of the best weeks you've ever covered? A week with absolutely nothing. I mean, it is post-Thanksgiving, and nobody's going to bother to put any new good stuff out this weekend in wide release. We do have a couple of limited titles to talk about, including Steve McQueen's Shame, the film he did before he eventually won the Oscar for 12 Years a Slave. And we also have Emma Browning starring in a new version of Sleeping Beauty, which I have yet to see yet, but I'm already guessing that it's going to be a hell of a lot better than the other movie that she was in earlier this year with Sucker Punch. Maybe. We'll see. I got to check that out at some point. But we'll take a look at both of those movies and get through this weekend tomorrow on the show. So be on the lookout for that. With all that said, though, thank you so much for watching this, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please go ahead and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification button. Also, don't forget to check out our playlist and check out the last episode we did. So with all that said, whether it's in the past, the present, or the future, I will see you at the movies. Take care.